I think live. Oopsie daisy. Good morning. Oh, hang on. We've just had a little accident here. Right. I think we're still working. Good morning and good wherever you are, everybody. Can I just do a quick visual sound check with people? I've left the thread on for now just to make sure. Last week we had I don't know if we had a few glitches with some people after because I hadn't had it on. Hear me okay? Lovely. Thank you. I'm just going to turn the chat thread off during the meditation and we'll turn it back on after the meditation as we normally do. All right, so you should see that disappearing from your screen. Welcome, 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 welcome to another guided meditation. Wherever you are in the world, I hope that the Dharma is being a conscious support for you. And by that I mean that you're becoming increasingly aware of the way reality works, the way Dharma flows through our lives in all different subtle and not so subtle ways. Just going to turn this thing off. So, and as we commence, I'm just kind of saying a few things to allow people to connect and settle before we start this formal meditation. And it'll be the same format. For those that haven't attended before or watched the recordings, just a simple guided meditation at the beginning with a few words here and there, whatever the Dharma wants to speak through me. I don't plan it, so we allow things to flow, take it as it comes, and a few Dharma reflections towards the end, and then about 15-20 minutes of questions. Okay, so please get yourself comfortable in whatever seated position is supportive for you to enable you to keep aware and awake. And wherever you might find yourself, you can still practice meditation. Ideally, a nice quiet room is always supportive, but it can't always be that way, can it? So, and I'll put the camera on the candle for you all. Okay. So just begin by taking a few deep breaths so that you can consciously relax and release any tension in your body or any busyness, any disturbances in the mind. And in many traditions of Buddhism, they often start the meditation practice or any formal sitting by generating bodhicitta. Or in Theravada, we It's most related to metta, generating metta, loving kindness, compassion. So it is a very skillful, helpful way to start a meditation practice. It can clear out a lot of dross. It can help establish us more in an open, connective way with all beings, rather than just focusing on our own desires and wants or aspirations for enlightenment. So let's begin by that very practice of dedicating this time, this meditation inquiry, for the benefit of all beings. So we wish in our hearts, may all beings be well. May they be peaceful. May they come out of suffering. And all beings include not just humans, but all the animals in our world, all the life forms, the planet itself, and invisible beings. Whether we believe in that or not, it doesn't matter. But there are beings, said to be beings existing at all different levels of consciousness, of materiality or non-materiality. So we wish all those beings the highest happiness, the highest liberation. And of course we include ourself, our so-called concept of ourself within this well-wishing, within this metta, that we too may come out of suffering and realize the highest happiness, the highest liberation. And just notice right now, if in turning your mind, your intention towards metta or bodhicitta, what effect does that have on your heart? But we can't force this feeling of expansive love, of empathy, of compassion. We can't force it by thinking or wanting it. It's just an allowing that can happen as we let go. As we soften into what's happening here and now. And as we become more sensitive, we can gently bring our attention to the breath. Resting the awareness in whatever place within the body allows us just to be present. Can you just be sensitive to your own in-breath and out-breath, just for a few minutes, in order to allow anything that's been stirred up, any of the busy chatter within the mind, or any emotional eruptions, just to settle back down. And often when we begin sitting in meditation, we notice just how stirred up the muddy waters are. So like any muddy water, it can only settle if we leave it alone. If we keep stirring and prodding it and trying to clear it, the mud just keeps getting stirred up. So the clear waters of the mind, of the heart, come about naturally as we keep letting go of everything that arises. No grasping, no identifying, no holding on to. Anything. The breath can be our natural, easy anchor. But not forcing, not controlling. Whatever thought arises in the mind, a memory of the past, a fantasy of the future. Wake up and let it fly in the wind. We don't want any of this stuff. The more we hold on, the more it keeps us away from being alive, present, real. We don't need to be a conceptualization. We don't need to be a perception, an idea. Or an emotion. We see how these things are constantly arising based on our holding, our clinging to them. And it keeps us stuck. Keeps us bound or concretized. Which is an unpleasant way to live. It keeps us from flowing with life. So when we flow with life, we're not holding, we're not identifying with anything that arises as me or mine. There's no pushing or pulling. There's simply an open awareness. Of this very moment. Which is empty, spacious, silent, not forming concepts. Not looking for anything special or different from what's right here, right now. And this awareness includes everything. It allows everything. It opens to everything. But it holds on to nothing. So who do we think we are? In this very moment? Who are we becoming? If we're running with any idea, any thought, any perception, then we're becoming that. We're creating our imaginary self. If we're holding on to a feeling or an emotion, pushing it, pulling it, we're becoming that. Identifying as that. Or if there's something in the external world, the sight, the sound, the smell, the touch, that we're reacting to, then we're creating a sense of separateness. Another, something alien to this me. This me, which I can't find, but I have a constant sense of whenever I contract into my shell, into my narrow world of my likes, dislikes, judgments, views and opinions, and beliefs pretty much constitutes this self-centered me with all its conditioned, screwed up processes, where there's no consistency. It's just a mishmash of stuff. No wonder it's confusing and painful and always in conflict. But this awareness, this still point, can know all that without getting involved. It simply doesn't get involved. It simply watches the drama of life playing itself out. Often like a lotus leaf, a drop of water on a lotus leaf. Rising above it all, untouched, unpolluted. Can you recognize your own inherent awareness and rest into that? Just as you would rest if you placed a hammock on the bank of a river and gently and easefully watched the flowing waters, and you allow them to flow. All things are flowing, inside, outside. No division, truly, no division. No preferences. No judgments. No expectations. And no clinging either or identification with this awareness itself. Don't turn it into another thing, another possession or achievement, or another me with a capital M. Just recognize it. You don't create it. You don't own it or attain it. It simply is. And its isness becomes more pronounced, more to the fore, for want of a better word, when we get out of the way, when we relinquish our attachments, our holding, when we stop contracting as a self, as an ego. And it's not another doing. It's not something that we have to keep striving for and doing. We simply look, notice, and the more we look with wisdom, with insight, then these old scabs of ego identification just simply drop off. And we are no more we. There simply is. So I hope you found some of those words, pointers helpful. It's really just a practice, a constant practice of shedding, isn't it? And of recognizing and coming back to our real home. And this is the Dharma. So before I turn the chat thread back on for questions, I'll just respond to an email question that came in regards to the use of psychedelics. And the question was around, can the use of psychedelics lead to spiritual liberation? I imagine it's quite a common question for many people, as the psychedelic revolution is having its new phase, I think. The use of ayahuasca ceremonies and more research into the use of psychedelics, particularly to deal with medical conditions such as PTSD, anxiety, depression, and so on. So I think psychedelics certainly has a place for helping people who are really traumatized, who are really stuck. And psychedelics, I guess, are going to be used more and more in controlled, supportive environments as a what's the word? Therapeutic tool. Yeah, so I'm not an expert on that in the therapeutic context, but I imagine they can be quite helpful. In terms of the use of them recreationally or so-called spiritually, it's a whole nother ball game, really, and we have to look honestly at our intentions and our usage, engagement with them, and apply Dharma. When I was 20 years old, I took a number of series of LSD trips, as they're called. Someone at uni just was into them, as he was into lots of substances. So I was open, I was searching, I was young and adventurous and also reckless. So as you are, I think, when you're young. And I think I also had a slightly addictive personality in those days, probably still do, but there's a lot more awareness of that and insight and wisdom into that. But anyway, so I'm saying that because if it had not been for meditation a year later when I was 21, I could potentially have become addicted to substances. So, and having taken LSD, and I think it was good quality LSD. I mean, I don't know what's out there now. I'd hate to think whether, I think I wouldn't be so keen to ingest some of the stuff that's out there now. But anyway, so this LSD trip was, amazing. It opened my eyes to things that I'd never seen before. And, but by the same token, when you take these intense substances, and it wasn't necessarily in a controlled spiritual environment, I didn't have a shaman leading me or a spiritual guide. I was just a young thing with friends, fairly clueless. So these filters get removed, and they change. The drugs obviously change the very structure of your brain and open the doors, as Aldous Huxley said. The doors of perception were opened into another realm. However, even though some of it was incredible, enlivening, opening, and this burst of love came through and interconnectedness to all beings, it also, because there's no filters, it allows all the dark stuff to be seen. And if you're not ready for that, as we know, it can send people right off. So it sent me off quite a bit, really. And once I started to come down, and I had to look at the dark stuff, to face some of the deepest fears, the deepest self-loathings, self-hatings, and all the muck, the defilements, also have a chance to come to the surface. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you know how to look and hold it. But as I said, I didn't have a lot of wisdom. I didn't have a lot of meditation practice under my belt. In this life anyway, who knows? But I had enough stability to be able to get through it. I probably did a series of them, and because they increasingly ended in what you would term pretty bad trips, there was good, there were highs, but there were also the really scary stuff. I decided there's no way I'm going to take it anymore. And fortunately, as I said, I got into meditation, and with that meditation practice came a commitment to not take substances. So, and I'm not saying that as a moral thing, but more as a commitment to a different spiritual path that I guess allows for a natural awakening to happen. Because when you take these psychedelics, your doors are open real quick and you're flooded. You're flooded with stuff that you're perhaps not ready for. And, people end up in the emergency unit, in psychiatric units, from taking this stuff in an uncontrolled way. And so you're playing with fire, That's one thing, I think. But you're also, and this is speaking personally, you know, it's like our society is so much about instant gratification, isn't it? We want enlightenment now, and we want the easiest way. Give me a pill, give me a drug, give me a mushroom so that I can get enlightened now. It's not going to happen. That's what you've got to face. It's not going to happen. Whatever spiritual, or I don't even want to call them spiritual, but whatever intense experiences you have of so-called awakening, they're all impermanent anyway. Yeah, we can have a great insight or experience or feeling of love, of high, of tripping out, of whatever. But they're all impermanent. And this is what the Dharma is about. It's recognizing that whatever the bestest, most extremist, pleasantest, ecstatic experience you have, it doesn't last, right? Everything comes to an end in this conditioned realm. And this is the wisdom that needs to be developed. Because this wanting mind that wants intensity, and why is it that we want so much intensity? Maybe it's because life was so numbed. Life seems so dull and dreary, this so-called normal waking life, that we go searching for the highs and we want the insights now. But if you really spend time to reflect on that intention, it's all about me wanting, isn't it? Even if it's couched in terms of spiritual, enlightenment, which is a noble desire. But when we're just chasing experiences and intensities and blisses and ecstasies and out-of-body experiences, it's just me, this me wanting constantly. So, what is enlightenment? What is spiritual liberation? It's when there is no me that wants anything, when the total dissolution of this me is gone. And that doesn't come by me chasing experiences. I want enlightenment. The reason we want enlightenment is because we want to be free of ourselves, isn't it? Which is such a painful thing to be. So if you look at the great masters, the really authentic great masters, their liberation didn't come about by taking psychedelics. We have to be honest. It came by true practice of letting go of all desires, and in seeing clearly, and in being willing to shed this ego completely. So the true enlightenment is the egoless state, when all wishing for anything other than whatever is, So I'm not here to judge or say what anyone should do, but just to reflect and to look based on my own experience of chasing experiences, wanting spiritual highs, to recognizing that the spiritual path requires patient endurance. So the Buddha said, the highest virtue is patience. And we're not going to get fully liberated by one big bang necessarily. It can happen, but it's very rare. And normally that being has been practicing for lifetimes. The Buddha practice for lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes to perfect his awakening. And of course, he had the perfect awakening, the full, because that was his path. And we don't have to be, we probably won't end up with the fullest omniscience of the Buddha. But the true liberation will come when we can shed everything. So if we're wanting to reflect on how well we're doing on this spiritual path, we have to look at honestly at the desires, at the attachments. Are we still living out of this wanting mind that is always craving and thinking about itself? And the more that we're thinking about ourselves and our own wants and needs, the more suffering there'll be. And the more we think about the needs of others and letting go of our own selfish desires and wants, the less suffering there will be. So the less need there'll be to want to be things to be different. But that doesn't mean that life is dull. It might look dull on the surface, but the aliveness happens in a natural way. And so things become more intense in a more subtle, natural way. And any high experiences that you have that come, and which they will come naturally through meditation, we stop holding on to them and mulling over them and attaching to them, and we learn to integrate them. So that's the thing about psychedelics. If you've had some big, powerful awakenings and insights, you have to learn how to integrate them into this so-called normal life, which is not normal at all. We just are so dull that we think it's normal. So it doesn't seem alive or magical anymore. So we come back just to being normal and natural, like the before enlightenment, after enlightenment experiences. Chop wood, carry water, and just be normal and integrate them. And they affect your behavior in a different way and the way you see the world. Okay, so that was a fairly long response. I hope it was helpful, and whatever you disagree with me on, that's fine. I don't expect you to agree with anything I say. Just a bit of a stream of consciousness going on there. So I'm going to put the chat back on for questions. And there was a question at the beginning, Paul, and asked, what's the difference between the absolute and nirvana? So the word nirvana, the origin of that word comes from an ancient Indian practice whereby a seeker would go out seeking or renounce the household life and would put out the fires, because in those days I think they had this constant fire burning for cooking and living. And so they would make this commitment to go on the path of wandering, spiritual paths, and they would extinguish the fire. And that word is called nirvana, to put out the fire. So the literal meaning, I think the word ni, N-I, in the Sanskrit and Pali is a compound of, it's a negative, so it denotes the not. So nirvana means to go out, to cool the fires, to extinguish the fires. So what does that mean when you're talking about the absolute? Because the absolute's a positive term that is used, and nirvana is kind of the negative. And the Buddha would always often talk about the not this, not that, as a way of pointing to the truth. But on some occasions he would describe nirvana as a positive, you know. You can look it up. There's many, many synonyms for that word. But basically they're the same thing. But when you completely extinguish the fire, and this is what I was just saying in response to the question on psychedelics, you're extinguishing the ego, the fire of becoming. You're putting out the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, which constitute this sense of ego, this becoming of a self. And when those fires are completely extinguished, we've put out the fire of hate, delusion, and greed or desire. That is nirvana, or nibbana in Pali. And what then? You use a word to describe that, and many times it's been described as the absolute. So there's just different words for pointing to the same absolute truth, the true Dharma. Many words. But anyway, hope that answers your question, Paul. Whether you see it as the complete extinguishment of something or the full realization of the absolute. So I'll just scroll for seeing if there's any more questions. So Marian's asked for a recommendation of a book from my particular tradition, which I assume you mean Theravada, and or Theravada Forest. So we're actually in the process of creating a website, or Ayajitis. I'm not doing anything because I have no clue. And we will put up, sorry, my mouse just dropped. We will put up lots of resources, including books to recommend, but I'm not a big reader. Believe it or not, you wouldn't believe that, would you? I'm not a big reader anymore. I used to be an avid reader. I was at university for 10 years, so you can imagine how much I read. But I don't read much in the same way that I used to read. So now I read pith, just the pith. So in terms of a recommendation, I don't know. I think I just, in that last guided meditation, recommended the Four Noble Truths. There's a link to the Amrawati website where you can find the book that Ajahn Sumedho wrote many moons ago, which was one of the first books I read in this tradition. And it's a priceless book. I would highly recommend that one. And he also has many other books that you can download for free on the Amrawati website. So if you go to a recent recording that I put up of guided meditation on the Four Noble Truths, under the descriptor, under the video, you'll find the descriptor with the link there. Okay. Surya asks, Would it be okay and appropriate to share these guided meditations with people who haven't expressed just a passing interest in Buddhism and meditation? You can offer it, but I think I've said this before, I wouldn't go forcing anything on anyone. They have to show their own genuine interest, because I think they might think, who's this boring person? Why are you showing me this boring video? I have no idea what she's talking about, something to do with awareness. Or you might just put them off for life. So I don't know if they're genuinely interested, but it might just all go over their head. So they have to just start where they're at. Okay. In a difficult situation with a difficult person's, how can a Buddhist practitioner know whether they should take the situation as an opportunity to become stronger in the practice? Well, you've just answered your own question. In a difficult situation with a difficult person, it exactly is a situation to become stronger in the practice, isn't it? These pains in our backsides are our best teachers. Reluctantly, I had to come to that realization. It's those people who show us those things that we don't want to look at. The deeper annoyances, the hate, the not liking, they're our best teachers. So we have to bow down to them in our hearts and recognize that these people are actually helping us let go more and more. Now, that doesn't equate with, therefore, you should stay with someone who's abusing you because he or she is your best teacher. No. But you have to make the wise decision about who you hang around with. But if there's a situation where you just can't get out of that, like a work situation, you just work with an annoying person, or you live with someone who's really difficult, wise reflection. Do I run away from this? Do I leave? Or do I recognize that I have to work with this because it's not really a life-threatening situation? It's just my own stuff being triggered. So that person is going to help us develop discernment about how to respond, and also offer us a chance to really look at the difficult stuff within ourselves and not to blame them ultimately for our suffering, but to recognize that we can transcend the suffering that gets triggered from that person, because it's just happening. The processes are simply happening within ourselves. So an opportunity to look, really, and transcend it. Oh, where is it? Okay. Lots of thank yous. I'm just reading through them. So Thorn says, I had a white light experience on some very clear LSD in 1976. Those were the days. One goes through molecules, atoms, subatomic particles, and into the loving light and returns the same way. Meditation is my path now. Yeah, as I said, all sorts of amazing experiences can happen and insights. How do we integrate them when we come back into this realm? Someone's asking for these sessions weekly. Also, my back becomes stiff and hurts a bit after 10 minutes or so. I'm not, at this time, I'm just committing to a fortnight. I think it's more than enough, because in between these sessions, there's just so many other meditations that that you can do. Or if you need the support, there's all the recordings that go up, which are they are meditations. They may not be titled guided meditations, but the intention is to use them as a meditation. This is the readings I'm talking about, the recordings. So there's plenty of stuff. And, I don't want to put my mug out there more than I need to. So once a fortnight is good. And how to make your back become less stiff. Just, it's just that happens. My knee's really stiff at the moment. I learned to work with it, massage it, move it. Okay, and if you've got some chronic problem, you might need to see someone about it. But it's the nature of the body too. It's recognized the body is stiff, and it's getting stiffer as we get older. So we just have to work skillfully with it. There's a sore back mudra. You can look up that. Okay, I think might have skipped a few because this thread, doesn't it, pops down real quick. So I think there's one at the end, something about, do you think meditations could fix cluster headaches? I'm not sure what a cluster headache is, but yes, it can certainly, is that you have a cluster of them, I suppose. But definitely can help. Because if the headaches come from too much thinking, too much tension, then when you go into meditation, things soften, the muscles soften, the thinking slows down or dissolves. So then the body gets so much benefit from that. When we think, we generate so much heat and fire and tension. Too much thinking. But having said that, if you've got some medical issue around headaches, you need to, get some medical advice and support. Some other reflections here and sharings. Okay. And Janny's saying she's got a total loss of interest and passion. Yeah, so you need to look into that total loss of interest and passion if it's, if it's a real detachment that brings with it peace and contentment. But if it brings depression and listlessness, that's the opposite. So this whole notion of detachment and dispassion, when it's true, wise dispassion and detachment, it's coupled with inner peace and contentment, not depression, nihilism, alienation. Mm-hmm. So if you're feeling a lot of negative stuff around it, then you need to work and look at that, where that's coming from. Okay, I think we're just getting lots of gratitude and expressions of thank you. And, thank you all too. It's an opportunity for me a very good opportunity for me to give, offer the Dharma to whatever level I can, to whatever extent I can, so that it may be of benefit to people out there. So thank you for your opportunity to connect, to share, and I send all blessings your way to everyone out there and to all beings, and may whatever I said in this session be of help to bring you more and more to awakening and liberation. And then whatever I said that wasn't helpful, please forgive me and leave it aside. So just take what is good. Learn to recognize what's helpful for you right now and let go of everything else. And eventually we'll let go of everything because there's no need to hold on to anything. That's nirvana. That's true peace. When all clinging stops. And as I think it was Atisha said, it's the highest wisdom, the highest attainment is egolessness. Yes. All right. Love to all, lots of metta. And yes, just the heads up for the next session will be the 29th or 28th of November, getting towards the end of the year, very quickly. I'll do what I do normally. If you don't know what normally is, I generally put a community post with the link, and you just check in with your time, and I'll see you in a fortnight. And I think that's all. Oh yeah, and you can check out our website, which is still being constructed, www.vivekahermitage.com. And as I said, we're slowly constructing it, and there will be resources put on there, book recommendations, links, talks, and kind of compilation of Q&As. But it's very slow because Ayajit is very slow and she's got other things that she needs to attend to. So it's a slow process, as is enlightenment. So we don't rush, no haste. The slower we go, the less haste, the more progress we make, actually. So, because there's nowhere to go anyway, is there? So we stop rushing, we stop worrying, we stop hasting. We have arrived. Take care, everybody, and wherever you are, you're already home. Ciao. Ciao, 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 ciao. I'm going to end the stream now. Bye.